I should unmute before saying things. Welcome to the August 27th, 2020 Helm developer call. Let's see, if you're new to the call, the structure of the call is we will do some announcements at the beginning, and then we will move our way through a relatively preset agenda, and I will do my best to keep us on time, for whatever one's definition of on time is. So the announcements today, the first one has to do with KubeCon EU, and I'll let Bridget go ahead and take that one away.
We don't need to discuss it. I just dropped a link in there. You can take a look. We took the names off of all the people who asked the questions, and those are all the questions, minus a few, logistical questions from Mark's and I's session. So you can take a look, and I imagine these will be fodder for future blog posts, etc. And it's just kind of nice to see. It's like the dev on the street sort of questions for an intro to Helm session. It's a little instructive to see what people are asking during our session.
And if anybody did a Helm-based session or Helm-relevant session and has a count for how many people attended, we've been kind of informally collecting those just to get a feel for what our baselines are in this one. So far, I know the intro session got 567, I think was the number I saw. And I've been trying to compare those with some other numbers to find out, relevant to San Diego and the last KubeCon where things are going. Okay, so I think that's, so if you've got those, feel free to drop those into the chat here or directly into the notes. So going on to the discussion, we have a pretty huge number of discussion topics today. So I'll kick off topics, but for the sake of brevity, if the person who submitted the topic is not on the call today, I'll just skip over it and we can mark it as follow-up on the next week. But we can kick it off with Martin's issue on the Map Kube APIs plugin. Go ahead and take it away, Martin.
Yeah, just briefly, the plugin is to help us get around the ugly spot that is the Kubernetes APIs when they get removed. If somebody has a release that has been using the previous API and then they upgrade the cluster, they no longer can manage that particular release. So we couldn't find a nice solution to it. The hope is one day we'll find a nice solution and we can put a bullet in the plugin. But for the moment, we're stuck with that. And I'm just wondering, is it the right thing to do to put that into the Helm org because it's something that is Helm related and is something, I suppose, that's critical for people in Helm? Because just in case I go up, I get knocked down by a car or something like that.
Or win the lottery. Let's be positive.
Actually, that's good. Actually, if I win the lottery, yeah, definitely. I'll never log into GitHub again for the rest of my life. So that's all I have to say on this.
Partly related, Helmfile has also asked about joining the org again after about a year since they last discussed that. So in all these cases, I think we need some good guidelines documented that we can help people understand what's a good candidate, what the process is for doing it, what the legal review is like, and stuff like that.
Yeah, so in the case of Helmfile, they are not Apache 2 licensed, which is the thing that continually stops us. So if they ask again, that is right now the big blocker is the license.
I think one of the on that same issue, they asked for guidance on all of this stuff, and I went to respond and realized I didn't really know. So,
okay.
So maybe the prime action item from this one would be if anybody knows enough to be able to document even the basics, then we can start working on that in a Helm community PR.
Okay. Personally, in my experience, if they're not the right license and they don't own the copyright and they have contributors, forget it. It's never going to happen.
Yeah, because you've got to go to each of the contributors and who still has code in the code base. Not everybody, but everybody who still has code in the code base, and they have to authorize it. Or if there's just a small amount of code, you can actually rewrite that by somebody who it does authorize it. So just that latest code is under the license. In the case of Martin's, though, so we should probably get back to that one. It is Apache 2, so that is not an issue.
I'm pure as the license is.
So if we have some documentation on what to do, I think we could use Martin's plugin as a test run for for a process that we then recommend as the official process.
Okay.
It sounds good to me. Is there anybody who wants to take the action to go try to create this general definition for what we would do versus a third party?
I think technically this person would have to be one of the org maintainers, right?
Yeah, and I can be the guinea pig then.
Let's follow up on that one specifically on the org maintainers Keybase.
Sounds good. Okay. Yeah, so we can keep moving. I'll take the action to follow up there.
Okay. Okay, I scrolled down too far. Slack app integration. This came up briefly last week, and we decided to delay until this week. Farina, you're the one who owns that item on the list.
Yeah. There was other movement on the ticket. I think we can just kill it and deal with it on the ticket for now. Although you're muted.
Oh, Zoom. All right, how's that? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the next one then. Fairly straightforward issue came up in Kubernetes 1.18 that needs a merge. I think this one is also Martin's. You want to talk about the bump to Kubernetes 1.18 in Helm v2 issue?
Yeah, so in 3.2, we bumped Helm 3 to 1.18, and that's grand. Some of the APIs changed that we used under the hood, especially around secrets and config maps, etc. They brought in the context parameter into it. The point here is, if somebody has a tool written or code written that uses both the Helm v2 and the Helm v3 APIs together, and they happen to call Helm v2 API, which we'd call down into the storage area in particular, then it's going to fall over because of the version of the libraries will be .18, and that basically will break the call because Helm v2 is using prior to .18. I think it's used maybe .16 of the libs. Now I know we've moved v2 and whatever else, but there's going to be software still out there, and one of them just happens to be the plugin I mentioned previously. So I've been playing around with that, bringing the libs up to date, and I think it's something maybe we need to consider, and is it something we'll go and do, and bump them up to 1.18. Now I don't mind taking the action to do it, but is it something we want to do? I know we're in end of life, or heading into end of life, so.
And I fear that this will hit us again in 1.19 too, 1.19 as well. So do we want to get to 1.18 before EOL is the end of this month, isn't it?
It's November.
That's for just security, right? Do we want to keep upgrading the Kubernetes libraries up until November?
So bugs has passed. It is, and now we are only in security. Total end of life is November. So anything we choose to do here goes above and beyond our policy. We have one more 2.17 that needs to come out that takes us off of Google for storage, because that'll be garbage collected. And so that's coming, and that's enough of a change. It's a 2.17. So something else could, in theory, go in there. How much do we support this to its end of life? That kind of becomes the question here. I mean, we've been doing a lot, and that's good, but how much do we do? And that's really going to be maybe an opinion and a market. The longer we put it off, the longer until people switch from Helm to Helm 3. There's all kinds of consequences there.
Yeah.
So
The only thing I'd say,
And the consequence we might not have thought about is how do we know that this doesn't have regressions?
yeah, that's the other.
So I think we have two independent questions then. Do we want to get it in the .17 release, which is our last, technically our last feature or last pre-security freeze release, right? And if we don't, well, and regardless of that, do we want to stay at a recent Kubernetes version between now and November? I think those are independent questions. I think the default answer for the latter question has been no, right? That only security releases would go in. So if we want to change our minds on that, we might need to have the Helm project maintainers vote on that. But the former one, that I think we can discuss here and figure that out. Do we want to bump to 2.18 for the 2.7 or Kubernetes 1.18 for the 2.17 Helm release?
Do we have stats on how many people are still pulling like those images, like still pulling those versions versus the 3.0 versions?
probably.
I know Matt Fisher has them, but he's gone this week.
If we move on, I can try to pull those up while we're talking about other things.
Let's do that. Mark, do you want to talk about the delisting of stable incubator stuff? Both you and Scott are listed on that, but if you'd prefer having Scott do it, we can wait
Well,
till he.
the main point was from Scott, but I just want to bring up that as a user, I'm concerned. I'm not sure the communication was done properly about that second item that stable might go away. As a user, it has more impact on me. So I'll be okay now. I realize this, but I asked my boss who reads everything out there, and he said I wasn't really aware this could happen. So maybe we should do a blog or something.
Yes, wonderful idea.
Yeah, it was a one or two line item in a much longer blog post about V2 deprecation. So I think it's a great idea to have a standalone blog post. Yeah. Which we should probably do in conjunction with docs updates.
And we should probably do in conjunction with the Artifact Hub taking over for the Helm Hub so that people see the whole picture about what's going on and what's moving right now.
Can somebody other than me take the action to write the blog?
Sure, put it on me. Why not?
Right, we got Bridget and Matt Farina both just volunteered. Are you doing it together? Or?
Oh, Bridget's a much better writer than me. I think she should take the first shot at it.
I'll work on it with you, Farina. I'm
All
writing
right,
it down.
Tom Sawyer.
Notes are reality.
And I think we can return to the stuff that the delisting plan next week, and maybe with the context of the blog that might help a little, but I don't know exactly what Scott wanted to bring up. Scott also had one about Helm Hub and Artifact Hub. So unless anybody else feels comfortable taking that one over, I'll skip that one as well.
I probably can. Let's see, what did he have? Okay, so we have all agreed we are moving from the Helm Hub to the Artifacts Hub. And one of the things that comes up, and you'll see in Scott's pull request, is when we move forward in the Helm code base, there's an internal package that's designed to talk to Monocular. And the Artifact Hub added support for the search API that Monocular has, so we can use it. But right now, hub.helm.sh is the default if you don't pass something in. And we're going to put a redirect at hub.helm.sh over to the Artifact Hub. It's in the plan. The question is do we change the Helm code to go to artifacthub.io, or do we keep it at hub.helm.sh and have everybody go through the redirect? Which one do we do? That's kind of his question there. In one case, you have the automatic redirect that everybody's going to go through, but that does give us the ability to unwind it later because Artifact Hub is a sandbox project and it keeps a little bit of control on us for the default search location. because once we make that change, if people keep on those old versions, which they totally do forever, when I look at the stats in here in a minute, I'm actually going to see whether anybody's still downloading the 2.0.0 alpha, because there was somebody who was continually downloading that like once or twice a month. People download old versions, and we would lose the ability to have control over that redirect if something happens to Artifact Hub, because it's only a sandbox project. We couldn't take that back over. But there is a redirect in there, and so the downside is you'd have to have the redirect, and you'd have to have all that running all the time.
I don't see a huge downside.
I would like to propose setting a time that we're going to do the switch on the domain names, and then use like November maybe or December, and be able to do a release that follows the redirects first, verify all of that, wait for the hub to set in, the Artifact Hub to settle in, and then migrate over at a time when we could have messaged enough to people that nobody will be surprised. I feel like that plan has been working for us fairly well, and is less likely to trigger anybody's breaking change of toggle switch. So that might be.
Yeah, and the one thing is, should we, for Helm to change its pointer for who it calls, do we want to make the criteria for that to be something about stability for Artifact Hub, like it hit incubating or it hit graduated before we finally make that call? Rather, because as long as it sits sandboxed, there's always, that's an experiment. We don't know, and so do we want to have that level of control?
I guess I don't see a major downside to people who are looking under the hood and see that URLs are different. Oh, well, as long as we document and the URLs you see will look like this. Like, so what? That way, at least we've got the redirect. We can point it to wherever we need to in the future. I don't understand why we would bake in somebody else's URL that could end up being a horrible disaster. That just seems like it's a risk.
Yeah, I think I agree with Bridget on that, Matt, just for what you said as well, around that if something doesn't last, because nothing lasts forever. So, but if you have the particular URL and you can do the redirection, then it doesn't matter what's at the back. I suppose an example is what kind of JFrog are doing at the moment with their IO Center. That's a nice concept, but as they'll even say themselves, maybe that won't last forever either. So yeah.
So I would be okay with saying we weren't going to change the domain name then until it went from sandbox to incubation. I mean, we're probably talking a year out on that, realistically, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that, and we should add some comments into the code in the user-facing side. I think we can at least say in the CLI it's Artifact Hub, but not change the URL. We can do something with the messaging that makes that more clear. I think. Okay.
I think I accidentally skipped or deleted an item here on the agenda. Okay, Mark just put it back. Okay, sorry, I don't know what I did there. I was probably switching back and forth. I accidentally hit delete somewhere. Go ahead, you want to take that one, Mark? Well, so just to close out that last one, I think we're okay with staying on the same domain for now, and somebody can propose a transition plan for when Artifact Hub hits incubation, right? Or whatever level whoever proposes it thinks it ought to hit. Okay, go ahead, Mark. Sorry about that.
No worries. It's a real quick one. There's a contribution that came in a while ago, and the guy's not responding anymore, and I'm interested in doing it. What's the policy for a maintainer taking over a contribution? Or I should say the etiquette, maybe.
Just ask.
Everybody's uncomfortable.
No,
I don't think we actually have a policy, which is why nobody's stepping up. So here's what I would do, and everybody please pile on with it. I would ask on the pull request about taking it over, and then specify a certain amount of time that if you don't hear back, you're just going to take it over. And then I would go ahead and take it over, but I would do it with a new pull request, so that way you're the owner. even if you pull in the old commits or whatever, do it in a new pull request, and then close the old one when you take it over and point to the new one.
Okay, can you still hear me? Yeah. Okay, so it's just that I pinged them 3 times since May. I even said, "You willing? If you're unable to, take care. Can I could take it over if you prefer." That was over a week ago. No answer.
Oh, then I would take it over.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that okay?
Totally.
I read
And-
that pull request and I'm not sure I understand why we can't merge what he did, then you put a
It
few
needs a
more
rebase.
changes in. Oh, it needs a rebase.
It needs a
Okay.
rebase. Yeah, I changed something under the hood. So I'm sorry, Farina. I opened the other one and I closed this one saying, "Look, I took over." Blah blah blah.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Good, perfect. Thank you.
So in the meantime, I figured out how I deleted items when I was trying to unmute on Zoom. I pressed the space bar and I think it was the window was focused and I blanked it out. Did I delete anybody else's items before I go on down the agenda? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
By the way, I did get the statistics on Helm while we were talking for downloads. And the highest item is V214.3. That's the one that has the most hits and the highest percent of data transferred, and although with Tiller, they're the larger files. It is the most widely downloaded one. And then the next two are actually, the next group are all Helm 3.2 and 3.3 is the next group. Clustered together. My guess is there's some CI system that's just pulling in this one a ton, but I have not looked.
My guess is a major cloud provider might still be using Helm 2 and might still be pulling an older image because they're slow moving. Just a guess, and I'm not sure who that cloud provider might be.
Sounds like you do know who it is.
So, and there are a fair number. If I look in the top 10, the V2 shows up 3 different patch versions, still making it into the top 10.
Okay.
It's moved from V2 being the majority to now V2 being a minority, but it's still present.
Right. Does that inform at all a decision to switch to Kubernetes 1.18?
Heck, I mean, are these cloud providers even have Kubernetes 1.18 yet?
They will have 1.18 before they migrate. Well, I don't know.
Will these cloud providers even have 1.18 before V2 is entirely deprecated here in 3 months?
Yeah, let's table this one.
Let's ponder this. We'll table it to next week. Think about that.
Yeah. Okay, so we got 3 items left and 4 minutes. So before going on to the last 3, some of which are very quick. Volunteers for roles for next week. Who would like to do this particular job next week, moderating?
It looks like Mark says he will do that next week.
Okay.
And I'll take notes again.
Okay,
move
and
that-
then
to move things along.
issue queue triage. Anybody up for that? Hello, is this thing still on? All right, if you decide to volunteer for that, drop a message in Keybase or something. Otherwise, I'll keep doing it for a second week. So you can pencil me in for that. I think that just means you change the font color to gray. Okay, so 3.3.1 release date. Do we even feel like we have enough on there that we want to cut a release yet? There's one particular issue also having to do with Kubernetes 2.18, I'm getting my versions confused. 1.18.8 that there was a pretty critical fix in there that some people are having issues with. Do we have any reason why we would like to hold back on a .1 patch release, or any other overriding reasons we'd want to make sure to push it through quickly?
I'd like to get it out if at all possible, just because having something sitting there saying this is resolved, it'll fix coming real soon now, for people who are complaining about something from weeks ago, and like, okay, cool, the fix is coming real soon now. If it's not going to be something we do in the near term, we should tell them when.
That was Friday at 4:35 Pacific time. Anybody want to volunteer to cut the release? and we'll work around your schedule. Fisher, who frequently does this, is on vacation, so I can't volunteer him.
I can probably do it on Monday.
I'd love to sit with that too. So I would
Do you have
want
time on Monday?
I have time. I just have never been the one to do it, so I'd rather not do it without.
Sure,
someone.
I can walk you through it. You wouldn't be the first person I've walked through it. Sure. Let's shoot for Monday morning. I think I could do it then. I hope. I'll make time
Awesome.
Monday.
I don't know if the other question I had on here really has time or not. So, because it's more of a question for Fisher, who isn't here.
Right.
So we can defer that to next time. Mark, in the last minute and a half, do you have something you want to say about Dependabot?
Same thing, which probably wait for Fisher. I was just picking up an issue that came up.
All right, so we'll defer those last two until next week. So we've got those and a couple more. It looks like the agenda for next week should be also a little bit on the busy side. So, all right, any closing thoughts? Otherwise, we'll end exactly on time. Yay. All right, see y'all next week. Thanks for joining. Bye.
Bye.